Welcome to StoriesX, where we uncover the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary. Imagine this. A 72-year-old woman steps into an upscale Manhattan cafe, seeking nothing more than warmth and a moment's peace. Instead, she's met with humiliation and cruelty from the cafe's owner. Just as despair threatens to take hold, a Hollywood superstar steps in, turning her private pain into a global call for justice. What follows is a powerful tale of resilience, the impact of unexpected kindness, and the ripple effect of standing up against injustice. Stay with us to witness how one moment of cruelty was transformed into a story that touched millions around the world. Don't miss this moving journey. Subscribe to StoriesX for more stories that inspire, challenge, and remind us of the power of humanity. Hit that subscribe button and let's dive in. On a crisp spring morning in Manhattan, the bustling streets were alive with energy. Among the crowd, 72-year-old Maddie Parker made her way down the sidewalk, her slender frame wrapped in a light jacket and an old turtleneck sweater, braced against the chilly breeze. Maddie, a black woman with decades of resilience etched into her face, was no stranger to the challenges life threw her way. Yet today felt heavier. The uneven pavement made her arthritic steps careful, and the cold seemed to seep through her clothes. As she approached the corner, Maddie noticed a new addition to the cityscape. A sleek, modern cafe named Whitaker's. Its glass facade gleamed in the morning light, and vibrant floral arrangements framed the entrance. Banners announced its grand opening, and the scent of freshly ground coffee wafted through the air. Maddie hesitated. The allure of a warm refuge and the promise of a soothing drink was hard to resist. She glanced at her watch. 12:45 p.m. She had just enough time to stop for some hot water and take her 1 p.m. medication. Pushing open the heavy glass door, Maddie stepped inside. The cafe's interior was polished and modern, with muted earth tones and soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. Patrons, mostly professionals in crisp suits, sat at tables engrossed in laptops or quiet conversations. Maddie's eyes scanned the room until she spotted a booth near the back. She settled into the plush leather seat, relieved to be off her feet. A young waitress approached, her notepad and smile ready. "Welcome to Whitaker's. Can I get you started with something? To drink?" Maddie returned the smile warmly. "Yes, dear, just a cup of hot water, please, and do you have any fruit tarts?" "We do. Lemon, raspberry, or mixed berry? Which would you like?" "The mixed berry sounds perfect," Maddie replied. "Oh, and could I trouble you for an extra warm towel?" "Of course. I'll be right back," the waitress said, jotting down this order and disappearing into the kitchen. Maddie reached into her purse and retrieved her pill bottle, compact mirror, and lipstick. The ritual of preparing for her medication was second nature. The simple act of taking her pills gave her a sense of control over her Addison's disease, a chronic condition that required strict adherence to a medication schedule. As the clock struck 12:58, Maddie allowed herself a small smile. She was on schedule, a little victory in her day. The moment of peace was shattered by a pointed clearing of a throat. Maddie looked up to see a tall, lean white man in a crisp shirt and tie. His name tag read James Whitaker, the cafe's owner. His sharp features and cold stare exuded authority, but there was no warmth in his demeanor. "Can I help you?" Maddie asked, her tone calm despite the tension she felt. Whitaker's lip curled into a sneer. "What are you doing here, ma'am?" he asked, his voice dripping with disdain. Taken aback, Maddie replied, "I'm just here for a quick snack and some hot water. Is there a problem?" Whitaker's gaze swept over her, his expression filled with condescension. "This isn't some charity kitchen," he snapped. "We cater to a certain clientele, and frankly, you don't fit the bill." Maddie's heart sank, but she straightened her posture. "Sir, I'm a paying customer, just like anyone else. Here, I have every right to be served." Whitaker's sneer deepened. "Your kind brings bad luck. You'll scare away the real customers, the professionals, the rich ones making business deals. You're not welcome here." Maddie's composure faltered for a moment. "I'd like to speak to the manager," she said firmly. Whitaker tapped his name tag with mockery. "You're looking at him. James Whitaker, owner and manager. Now take your medication somewhere else." There's an older café downtown where your kind usually goes. The waitress returned, balancing a tray with Maddie's order, but Whitaker intercepted her. In one swift motion, he grabbed the tray and deliberately tossed its contents. The scalding hot water splashed across Maddie's arms and face, and the berry tart smeared across her sweater, leaving a sticky trail. Gasps rippled through the cafe as Maddie recoiled in pain. Whitaker feigned concern, his voice laced with sarcasm. "Oh dear, how clumsy of me. Are you all right?" Maddie's arms throbbed as she struggled to process the humiliation. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "I need a medical kit. Ice at least." Whitaker's sneer returned. "Medical kit for a little spill? Don't be so dramatic, old woman. If you need to clean up, use the restroom." Tears stung Maddie's eyes as she gathered her belongings, her pill bottle now drenched and ruined. The young waitress looked on helplessly, caught between her boss's wrath and her instinct to help. As Maddie made her way to the restroom, the weight of Whitaker's cruelty bore down on her. Behind the closed door, she caught her reflection in the mirror, a proud, dignified woman reduced to this. But as she steadied herself, a flicker of determination returned to her gaze. This wasn't over. Whitaker would soon learn that he'd underestimated the strength and resolve of Maddie Parker. Maddie's hands trembled as she dabbed at her scalded skin with a damp paper towel in the cafe restroom. Her reflection in the mirror was a cruel reminder of the humiliation she'd just endured. Her face streaked with water, her sweater ruined, and the red splotches on her arms a testament to Whitaker's malice. Despite the pain and embarrassment, a fire of quiet determination ignited in her chest. This wasn't over. Maddie had spent her entire life overcoming challenges, from societal prejudice to the daily struggles of living with Addison's disease. She wasn't about to let one cruel man strip her of her dignity. Gathering her resolve, she cleaned herself as best she could, then adjusted her damp sweater and stepped out of the restroom. The cafe was still humming with patrons, their hushed conversations punctuated by stolen glances in Maddie's direction. The tension in the air was palpable. The waitress who had taken Maddie's order earlier approached hesitantly, her face pale and eyes wide with concern. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I wanted to help, but Mr. Whitaker, he's just awful. Are you okay? Can I do anything for you?" Maddie managed a faint smile, touched by the young woman's kindness. "You've done enough, dear. Thank you for your concern." She placed a gentle hand on the waitress's arm. "What's your name?" "Emma," the waitress replied softly. "I'm new here, but—" She trailed off, glancing nervously toward the back of the cafe where Whitaker stood, glaring at her. "You have a kind heart, Emma," Maddie said. "Don't let him take that away from you." As Maddie turned to leave, a deep, steady voice cut through the cafe. "Excuse me, ma'am. Is everything all right?" She turned to see a tall, familiar figure striding toward her. His signature, hat and effortless charm were unmistakable. Johnny Depp. Maddie froze, momentarily caught off guard. The entire cafe seemed to still as the patrons recognized the Hollywood star. Phones emerged and murmurs rippled through the room. "I couldn't help but notice what happened," Depp continued, his eyes scanning Maddie's tear-streaked face and the stained, wet sweater. His expression darkened with concern. "Did someone here hurt you?" Maddie hesitated, glancing around at the sea of eyes on her. The last thing she wanted was to cause a scene, but her silence didn't matter. Whitaker, with his trademark arrogance, stepped forward. "Mr. Depp," he said with a forced smile, extending his hand. "I'm James Whitaker, the owner of this fine establishment. I assure you, this lady is just a disgruntled customer who misunderstood our policies." Depp ignored Whitaker's outstretched hand, his gaze never leaving Maddie. "Is that true?" he asked her gently. Maddie shook her head, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "No, sir. I came in here to have a cup of hot water and take my medication. I was treated with hostility, humiliated, and physically assaulted by this man." She gestured toward Whitaker. The cafe went silent. Whitaker's confident grin faltered, replaced by a defensive scowl. "That's ridiculous," he barked. "She's exaggerating. It was an accident, nothing more." Depp's calm demeanor didn't waver. He turned to the patrons, his voice carrying a quiet authority. Did anyone witness what happened? A man in a business suit raised his hand tentatively. I saw it. The owner threw her water and food at her intentionally. It was no accident. Another patron chimed in, her voice shaking. And the things he said, they were cruel. Completely. Uncalled for. Whitaker's face turned crimson as more patrons began to speak up. She didn't do anything wrong, someone said. He's been awful since this place opened. Depp took a step closer to Whitaker, his eyes cold and piercing. You think treating someone like this is acceptable? A paying customer? A woman seeking nothing more than a moment's peace? It's disgusting. Whitaker stammered, his confidence crumbling under the weight of public scrutiny. Mr. Depp, I didn't mean… Depp held up a hand, silencing him. Then he turned to Maddie. You don't deserve this, ma'am. Let me help you. He gently took Maddie's arm and guided her toward the exit. The crowd parted for them, their phones capturing every moment. Depp paused at the door, glancing back at Whitaker. You'll be hearing from my team, and I hope you're ready to face the consequences of your actions. As they stepped outside, the cool air wrapped around Maddie, soothing her still burning skin. Depp hailed a car and helped her inside, his demeanor shifting from fiery indignation to gentle kindness. I'm so sorry you went through that, he said, his voice soft. But trust me, that man won't get away with this. Maddie managed a small smile, gratitude welling up in her chest. Thank you, she said quietly. You didn't have to do this, but you did. I don't know how I'll ever repay your kindness. Depp shook his head. You don't owe me anything, Miss Parker. But together, we're going to make sure no one else has to endure what you did today. As the car sped away, the cafe behind them buzzed with chaos. Inside, Whitaker's world had just begun to unravel, and Maddie's fight for dignity and justice had only just begun. Maddie sat quietly in the car, the gentle hum of the engine soothing her rattled nerves. Johnny Depp, seated beside her, kept a watchful eye on her, his expression a mix of concern and determination. The chaos of Whitaker's cafe was now behind them, but the impact of the events lingered heavily in the air. Maddie could feel it in the slight tremor of her hands, the tightness in her chest. She clutched the tepid cup of tea Depp had gotten her earlier, savoring its warmth as they drove through the rain-slicked streets of Manhattan. Depp glanced at her, breaking the silence. Miss Parker, I hope you don't mind, but I've already contacted my publicist. What happened back there? It can't be swept under the rug. People need to know. Maddie hesitated, the idea of her humiliation being broadcast to the world filling her with a mix of apprehension and purpose. If it means that man is held accountable, she said softly, then I'm willing to share my story. But I don't want this to be about pity. It's not just about me. It's about everyone who's ever been treated as less than human because of their circumstances or the color of their skin. Depp nodded, respect evident in his eyes. Understood. This will be about justice and change. The car stopped outside a sleek office building. Depp's team had arranged for Maddie to receive medical attention from a private doctor. As they entered the building, the staff greeted them warmly, though their eyes lingered on Maddie's stained sweater and the red marks on her arms. Depp introduced her as a personal guest, ensuring she was treated with the utmost care. The doctor, a kind woman with silver-framed glasses, examined Maddie with gentle precision. The burns are superficial, she said, applying a soothing ointment. But it's good you came in, and your medication. Do you have a backup supply at home? Maddie shook her head. No, the pills were ruined in the cafe. I'll need to get a new prescription. Depp, who had been standing nearby, immediately stepped forward. We'll get it sorted right away, he said. Turning to the doctor, he added, whatever she needs, please ensure she has it. After the appointment, they returned to the car, where Depp's phone buzzed incessantly. He checked it briefly, then turned to Maddie. It's already starting, he said. The story is picking up traction. People are sharing what they saw, and reporters are asking questions. Maddie sighed, her resolve firming. Good. Let the world see what people like James Whitaker think they can get away with. As the car pulled away, Depp received a call from his publicist. Maddie listened as he discussed the situation with the same fervor he'd shown in the Café. When the call ended, Depp turned to Maddie, a small smile on his lips. "We've got a press conference set up for tomorrow," he said. "I'll handle most of the speaking, but if you feel comfortable, your voice could be incredibly powerful." Maddie considered this for a moment before nodding. "I'll do it. If sharing my story can prevent this from happening to someone else, I'll do it." The next day, the press conference was held in front of Whitaker's Café. The once busy establishment now stood eerily quiet, its windows dark and doors locked. A large crowd had gathered, media, activists, and curious onlookers. The story had spread like wildfire, and now all eyes were on Maddie and Depp. Depp stepped up to the microphone first, his voice calm yet commanding. What happened here was unacceptable. Discrimination, cruelty, and abuse of power have no place in our society. We're here to demand accountability, not just for Miss Parker, but for everyone who has been treated unfairly. He turned, gesturing for Maddie to join him. As she stepped forward, the crowd fell silent. Maddie took a deep breath, her heart pounding. She gripped the edges of the podium, steadying herself. "My name is Maddie Parker," she began, her voice strong despite her nerves. "I am a 72-year-old woman, a lifelong resident of this city, and someone who has faced more than my share of hardships. Yesterday, I walked into this cafe for something as simple as a cup of hot water. What I received instead was humiliation, pain, and a reminder of how far we still have to go to achieve true equality." She paused, scanning the faces before her. "But this isn't just about me. It's about the countless others who endure this kind of treatment every day, who are judged not by their character, but by their age, their appearance, or the color of their skin. We cannot let this continue." The crowd erupted in applause, their support bolstering Maddie's courage. She stepped back, allowing Depp to conclude the conference with a powerful call to action. That evening, Maddie sat in her apartment, exhaustion and pride mingling in her chest. The events of the past 24 hours felt surreal, but she knew this was only the beginning. Her phone buzzed with messages from strangers, friends, and even old acquaintances, all expressing their support. Johnny Depp had promised to stay in touch, ensuring that Maddie had everything she needed in the coming weeks. As she prepared for bed, she reflected on the whirlwind of events, knowing that her life and the lives of many others had been irrevocably changed. Maddie Parker, once invisible, now stood as a symbol of resilience and justice. And though the road ahead would not be easy, she was ready to walk it with her head held high. The day after the press conference, the impact of Maddie Parker's story was unmistakable. Social media platforms were flooded with hashtags like "Justice for Maddie" and "Shaw Whitaker's exposed." News outlets ran segments replaying the footage of Johnny Depp standing beside Maddie, delivering a call for accountability that resonated with millions. The once busy Whitaker's Cafe now faced a stark reality. Its reputation was in tatters. Protesters gathered outside holding signs that read, "No room for racism," and "Respect for all." The cafe's reviews plummeted online, with countless one-star ratings condemning the establishment's actions. Whitaker himself, once smug and untouchable, had gone into hiding, issuing a hollow apology through a hastily crafted public statement that did little to stem the growing outrage. Meanwhile, Maddie sat in her modest apartment, watching the events unfold on the news. The small living room, filled with the warmth of faded family photos and mismatched furniture, now felt like a command center. Michael, her grandson, paced the room, his phone buzzing with updates and messages from friends who had seen her on TV. "Gran, you're a hero," Michael exclaimed, his youthful enthusiasm filling the room. "People all over the world are talking about you. Can you believe it?" Maddie chuckled softly, shaking her head. "A hero, huh? All I wanted was a cup of hot water, Michael." Michael stopped pacing and looked at her, his expression serious. "But it's more than that. You stood up to someone who thought he could treat you like you didn't matter. And now the whole world knows what kind of man Whitaker really is." Before Maddie could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. Michael opened it to find Johnny Depp, casually dressed in a leather jacket and jeans, holding a box of pastries and a steaming thermos. "Thought you could use something warm that didn't come with a side of discrimination." Depp said with a grin as he stepped inside. Maddie smiled warmly. "Mr. Depp, you didn't have to— Please, it's Johnny," he interrupted, setting the box on the small coffee table. "And after what you've been through, this is the least I could do." As they settled into the cozy space, Depp updated Maddie on the growing response to her story. "Several civil rights organizations have reached out," he said. "They want to work with you, Maddie. Your voice has sparked something important." Maddie hesitated, the weight of the moment sinking in. "I'm just an old woman, Johnny. I don't know anything about activism or public speaking." Depp leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You don't have to be an expert. All you need to do is share your truth. That's what people connect with. Your story has already inspired so many. Don't underestimate its power." Michael chimed in, his excitement palpable. "Gran, this could be huge. You could help change things for people who've been through what you have." Maddie looked between the two of them, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and uncertainty. "I'll think about it," she said finally, her voice soft but resolute. Later that evening, Maddie and Johnny attended a private meeting with representatives from a prominent civil rights organization. They discussed potential ways to use Maddie's story as a catalyst for broader change, initiatives to combat discrimination, training programs for small business owners, and resources for marginalized communities. Maddie listened intently, her initial doubts giving way to a growing sense of purpose. By the end of the meeting, she agreed to lend her voice to a campaign focused on workplace equity and respect. Over the next few weeks, Maddie's life transformed. She spoke at community events, her words resonating with audiences who saw her as a symbol of dignity and resilience. Depp remained by her side, using his platform to amplify her message and ensure she had the support she needed. Meanwhile, Whitaker's Café faced its reckoning. Former employees came forward with stories of mistreatment, bolstering the case against its owner. Legal action was initiated, with Maddie as a key witness. The city council even passed a resolution condemning discrimination in businesses, spurred by the public outcry over Maddie's ordeal. One sunny afternoon, Maddie stood on a stage in front of a crowd gathered in Central Park. She wore a crisp white blouse, her hair neatly styled, and her presence commanded attention. Johnny Depp introduced her, his voice carrying over the sea of faces. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to present someone who has shown us all the power of courage and integrity. Please welcome Maddie Parker." The crowd erupted in applause as Maddie stepped forward. She took a deep breath, the weight of the moment grounding her. "When I walked into that cafe weeks ago, I felt small and invisible," she began. "But what I've learned since then is that no one is truly invisible. Each of us has a voice, and when we use it to stand up against injustice, we can create ripples that become waves." Her words were met with cheers and applause, a testament to the impact she had made. That evening, back in her apartment, Maddie sat with Michael, flipping through a stack of letters and messages from people across the country. Each one thanked her for her bravery, for standing up when so many others would have remained silent. As she tucked the letters away, Maddie looked out the window at the bustling city below. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The road had been hard, and there were still battles to fight, but she knew she was ready. With her grandson by her side and her story inspiring change, Maddie Parker had found a new purpose. The cruelty of one man had sparked a movement, and her resilience had lit the way. In the end, it wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong, and that was a legacy worth fighting for. The courtroom was packed. Reporters jostled for position in the gallery, their cameras ready to capture every moment of the trial that had captivated the nation. On one side sat James Whitaker, his once confident demeanor reduced to a nervous fidget. His lawyer whispered furiously in his ear, trying to salvage a defense from the mountain of evidence piling against him. On the other side sat Maddie Parker, her posture straight, her expression calm yet resolute. Beside her, Johnny Depp offered a reassuring smile. The case against Whitaker was clear: discrimination, public humiliation, and deliberate harm against a paying customer. The footage from Depp's live stream had gone viral, cementing the narrative of Whitaker's cruelty. Former employees had come forward, detailing years of abuse and prejudice under his management. The nation had rallied behind Maddie, turning her from a victim into a symbol of resistance against systemic bias. As the judge called for order, Maddie's lawyer stood to deliver the closing argument. He spoke of dignity, respect, and the need for accountability. Maddie Parker represents more than just herself, he said, his voice strong and measured. She represents everyone who has ever been told they don't belong, who has been made to feel less than human. This trial is about justice, not just for Maddie, but for the countless others who have faced similar treatment and stayed silent. Today, we have the chance to say that such behavior is unacceptable and will no longer be tolerated. The jury listened intently, their faces solemn. When it was Maddie's turn to speak, the courtroom held its breath. She stood, her years of wisdom and resilience evident in every step she took to the witness stand. "I never asked for any of this," she began, her voice steady. "All I wanted was a moment of peace, a place to take my medication and rest. What I received instead was cruelty and disrespect. But I'm here today not because I want revenge. No, I'm here because I believe in the power of change. If this trial can stop just one person from experiencing what I did, then it will have been worth it." Her words were met with a ripple of emotion across the courtroom. Even the judge seemed moved as Maddie returned to her seat, her dignity shining brighter than ever. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict: guilty on all charges. The room erupted in a mixture of cheers and tears. Whitaker sat motionless, his face pale as the weight of the judgment settled over him. He would face substantial fines, community service, and mandatory anti-bias training. But for Maddie, the outcome wasn't about punishment. It was about sending a message. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered, their signs and banners a sea of solidarity. When Maddie emerged, flanked by Michael and Depp, the crowd roared its approval. She paused on the courthouse steps, taking in the overwhelming support. Depp leaned down, his voice low but filled with admiration. "This is your moment, Maddie. You've earned it." Maddie stepped forward, raising her hand to quiet the crowd. "Today we took a stand," she said, her voice carrying over the throng. "Not just for me, but for everyone who has ever been made to feel invisible. Together, we've proven that kindness and justice will always triumph over hatred. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart." The crowd erupted again, their cheers a thunderous wave of support that echoed down the streets of Manhattan. In the weeks that followed, Maddie's life took on a new rhythm. Offers poured in for speaking engagements, interviews, and collaborations with civil rights organizations. Though she accepted a few, Maddie chose to focus on her community, working quietly to support initiatives that empowered the marginalized and fostered understanding. Johnny Depp, true to his word, remained a steadfast ally, using his platform to amplify Maddie's message. He visited often, forming a bond not just with Maddie but with Michael as well. Together, they created a scholarship fund for underprivileged students, ensuring that Maddie's legacy would inspire future generations. As for Whitaker's Café, it closed its doors for good. The once polished establishment now stood as a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when prejudice and arrogance go unchecked. One sunny afternoon, Maddie sat on a park bench, watching children play and families picnic. Michael joined her, a notebook in hand. "Gran," he said, a smile tugging at his lips. "I've been writing about everything that's happened. Your story deserves to be told." Maddie chuckled, her eyes twinkling with warmth. "You do that, Michael. But remember, it's not just my story, it's ours. Every person who stood by me, every voice that spoke out, they're all part of it." Michael nodded, his admiration for his grandmother evident. "I'll make sure it's something you're proud of." Maddie reached over, patting his hand. "I already am." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting golden light over the park, Maddie felt a profound sense of peace. Her journey had been difficult, but it had also been transformative. In standing up for herself, she had found her voice, and in doing so, she had inspired countless others to find theirs. Sometimes, she thought, the smallest acts of courage could create ripples that change the world, and for that, she was deeply grateful. In the heart of Manhattan, a quiet act of resilience transformed into a powerful movement for justice. Maddie Parker, an elderly black woman once humiliated in a café, reminded the world that courage can shine through the darkest of moments. With the support of unexpected allies like Johnny Depp and a community that rallied behind her, Maddie stood tall against prejudice, proving that dignity and kindness can prevail over hatred and cruelty. Her story isn't just about one woman's strength. It's a reminder that change begins when we refuse to stay silent in the face of injustice. It's a call to action for everyone to treat others with respect, regardless of appearances. Let Maddie's journey inspire us all to stand up for what's right, speak out for those who can't, and believe in the power of humanity to create a better world.